Hello, everyone, and welcome to Game Birds. I'm Bree.
And I'm Alice.
And today we will be discussing Minami Lane. Alice, this was your pick this time, so tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So Minami Lane, truthfully, was relentlessly advertised to me on my Steam homepage. It is a very cute game that came out in February of 2024, so it's fairly new. It is a cozy little simulation game where you're building out a street. It is single player, and you can play it on PC, Mac, and Switch. So this game was only $5, and it's not a huge game, but definitely wanted to try it out together and see if it's another cozy winner.
This game was made in 6 months, which I think is super, super cool.
Oh, that actually is interesting context for the opinions I have about it. So
Perfect. How long did it take you, or I guess how many hours do you have in this game so far?
I played for 119 minutes in total, which is not a ton, I recognize.
Interesting. I put about, I just double checking, 5.2 hours into the game.
Oh, wow. Okay. You really played. You played it.
Yes, I think I'm kind of sensing we're going to have different opinions on this one.
So this game does advertise about 2 to 4 hours of playtime altogether. As I mentioned, you're customizing your own street. And you get to manage your little shops, their recipes, and trying to sort of beat different missions, complete different challenge modes, and there also is a sandbox mode.
At the beginning of each day, you can add one building to your street, and there's different buildings that are available. There are ramen shops, there's bookstores, depending on the level and the achievements for that particular level. Then you play out the day. It's from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's also options to change the speed of that day, which is really nice. I actually timed it. A standard day with no speed ups is about 2.5 to 3 minutes long. Obviously, a lot quicker if you do any of the speed changes. And then at the end of the day at 8 p.m., you get an overview of the satisfaction, how your villagers liked the changes you made, things like that. I think there are 5 missions in total if you play just the main game, and they all have very different goals for each one, which I think makes it kind of fun.
Yeah, and each of those 5 challenges definitely ramps up in difficulty a little bit. I would not characterize this game as hard at all.
Not at all.
Not even a little bit. Like the first challenge is you barely have any buildings at all. And the mission is very simple versus like the last challenge where there's a bit more to do and there's a little bit more time involved to beat the challenge.
You mentioned earlier that there is a sandbox mode. There are 2 versions of the sandbox mode, which I think is super fun. There is the planner mode that you have limited money. There are still regular building requirements. So you need to have a certain amount of villagers. You need to have a certain amount of satisfaction score, a certain amount of beauty score before you can build those buildings. So that is version 1. There's also creative mode where you have a ton of starting money. You have no building requirements. Creative mode is the one that I dove into a little bit. It's basically like going into The Sims Rosebud and just going ham. So if you're into that, that's available for you.
Yes. Truthfully, I think my favorite thing to play in this game now is creative mode. Like I have some things to say about the challenges and the gameplay itself. And again, knowing this was built in 6 months certainly brings some context. But I think for me, I loved the art in this game and I loved the cute stuff and the people and all of the cats and the things to touch, I guess. But I think I got the most satisfaction out of that when I was just able to do whatever I want with unlimited money.
Alice, that is hilarious because that is the opposite for me. I played creative mode for maybe 10 minutes and I was like, oh, this is insanely boring to me. There's not a lot of challenge for me. And I will say even I made the joke about The Sims earlier, but honestly, that's how I would always play The Sims where I'm like, I want to work my way up. I want this to be as challenging as possible. I want to, achieve these bit by bit. It's going to be frustrating, but I'm going to get there. So I personally don't have a lot of fun when I have unlimited resources because I'm like, okay, well, I just did all the things. So it was fun for 10 minutes, but I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I don't think I'll be doing this again. So if I do play sandbox mode again, I would definitely play planner mode. I think that'd be a little more fun for me personally. I like the struggle.
I think that's fair. I guess for me, I can barely keep my attention to this game for 10 minutes to begin with. Even trying to get through a mission for me, I just didn't find that they were challenging enough for me to really use my brain. Until the 4th mission, I really didn't think there was enough to do during the daytime. And it just gets repetitive for me. Okay, did you pet the 2 cats? Did you find the trash on the street? And it's just the same things every day. And there's just for me, if it's not challenging enough, I mean, yes, I have to figure out what do my people like and how do I adjust. There's a little bit of a puzzle to adjusting your recipes, but not really more than 2 days worth of a puzzle in the gameplay of 2 days. And not very many things to do besides click on a few things during those 2.5, 3 minutes of what is one day. I just felt like it was such a slog to start each level, to try to have to like really scrape to earn that first amount of money to build enough buildings. But I have to be bored for the first 10 minutes to even get enough cash to like build the things I want to build and make the street look nice and have enough stuff going on. So I don't know, like for me, if I'm only going to probably be able to play this game for 10 minutes, I'm like, I might as well do it with unlimited money because I feel like each level for the first number of days, it just feels like a slog to me.
That's more than fair. One of the biggest notes that I had written in was, I don't think this game would be challenging enough for people who regularly play this kind of game. Honestly, I feel like the main draw for this is like the cute aesthetic, the very simple gameplay, and it is like really like plug and play. It also autosaves wherever you are, which is very, very lovely. As long as it's at the beginning of a day, it has saved everything up to that point, which is very nice. So again, I mentioned this a lot with some of the games we've played in the past, but like, I don't know, when I'm exhausted after work, I only have so much brain capacity. So this is nice in that sense. And I will say, especially the first two missions were really not challenging at all. To your point, especially when you get like the adjustments you need to make for the recipes for the shops or like the certain products you need to carry, it's usually just an adjustment of one or two things. And even like when the mission with the elders versus like the youths, they can't shop at the same places. I even started naming my restaurants like for old people, for young people.
That's so funny.
So that just so I can keep it straight in my head. I was like, and man, the old people are so dang picky and the youths are so dang cheap.
I think I went with the naming scheme of like, I'd be like, Classico for like the old people places and like nuevo, like for like, I don't know. I went with like a very like Spanglish aspect to it, I guess. So I totally get that though.
More tasteful than me. But I will say mission 3 is probably my favorite mission because I do like that the more beautiful you make your town, the more cats come. And that's kind of fun. And it is a small, very silly mechanic, but basically cats come to the town and you can pet them and you can get like a little bit of extra cash with that. And I do like, just along those lines, I do like the sound cues for everything because the cats will meow when they come onto the scene. So you have to just kind of scroll back, figure out where they are. And then they make little gentle purring noises when you pet them. And it's very sweet and cute and I like it.
This game is noticeably harder without the sound. I was playing without sound for a challenge or two at some point. I don't remember what I was doing, but it is way harder when you can't hear the cyclist ring his bell when he enters the street or the cat meow when they've entered the street. Having to like make sure you've scrolled back and forth and looked up and down the street to figure that out is definitely way harder.
Oh, no question. It's funny you say that because I feel like typically I will start a game like with, again, a YouTube channel on one screen and then me playing the game. And I was like, I should actually experience the music and the sound. And to your point, especially if you adjust the speed at all, I don't think you could get any of those things, like the cyclists coming by, the cats roaming around, picking up trash, things like that. I think it would be very difficult to catch those things. As far as I understand, I don't think there's any penalty of missing those things outside of like on your screen at the very end of the day. It'll let you know that you did miss those things, but I don't think there's any penalty if you do. I think it's just extra money. So I do like that level, but I will say I liked the addition of mission 4. I believe it's 4, where they had added like the newspaper. It's like a random event that changes. That's where I think more of the challenge comes in. I kind of wish that was introduced a little sooner because I think that added a fun kind of level of challenge to the game. Again, there's really not much to begin with. And I don't know if you took the time to read some of the headlines, but they were very funny.
They were good. I think that's why I say I don't think I was enjoying this game until level 4, when it finally had like a cute, like funny aspect, when there was some randomness, where there was actually some like perceived change in what's going on every day.
Mm-hmm. That is probably a mechanic that would have been beneficial to have a little earlier in the game, maybe at level 2 or something like that. To your point, there's not a whole lot of like initial challenge in this. And for context, basically a newspaper will come out every day with a headline and that will affect the gameplay for the day. It'll be like, oh, elders have changed their preference for recipes at the ramen shop. A young person became an old person. Like there's like a bunch of different things that will change the gameplay. There was 2 headlines in particular that I wanted to point out just because I thought they were very funny. One said, confirmed, special place in hell for litterers, so nobody will leave trash that day.
That's amazing.
And the little button that you hit says, great, question mark. And I thought that was also a very funny detail. And then the second one that was actually just on the one I was playing was, the mayor actually helps their community for once, which is super funny as well. Very topical. I love that. And kind of along those lines as well, something I also appreciated is, generally speaking, because you can click on the villagers and get their ideas of like what they like about the town or what they're thinking about. Sometimes it's helpful of like, I want more shrimps in my ramen or something like that. But they will also say a very unhinged, wild things. Like the one that is my favorite is my anxiety is through the roof, but at least I look really cute. And I said, girl, same. What a vibe.
You're not wrong. The writing is pretty fun in this. I would say this, like, I've been a little bit negative. I recognize, like, this game is really cute. I think for some reason in my head, when I thought about town simulation, I thought it was just going to be a little bit more challenging. The concepts are great. People having things to say, and there's recipes, and there's lots of different elements, which is really great. But I just don't feel like those elements are leveraged to a degree enough. Like, I just wish there was a bit more variety in the, like, gain or loss of money, or like gain of satisfaction, loss of satisfaction. Like, especially before mission 4, when you finally have at least one small piece of randomness, it's just not enough. Maybe it's an ADHD thing, because it's just like I don't feel stimulated. Like every day is exactly the same. Like I can't.
Yeah, no, I think that's more than fair, honestly. Again, the newspaper thing does add a bit of challenge, but also sometimes not. Sometimes it's really like, again, the one I just read about the special place in hell for litterers. That just means that you don't have to pick up trash that day. So that's one less thing you have to do. Of like, already you don't have a lot of things to do. Overall, like I kind of do like the simplicity of this game. Again, it was very easy for me to like pop in, and I think I would have a lot more fun in the planner mode if I choose to go back to this. But it's pretty short. It's pretty simple. I got 17 out of 20 achievements in my first playthrough. Overall, I think it's adorable, especially for $5. I feel like this is fine for me personally. I think this could be in my comfort game rotation. I think the music is very lovely. It's very fun and upbeat, and I was kind of bopping along to it. I thought that was adorable. Super bright, fun colors. I also love that you get to customize the building so it can kind of look a little more aesthetic. And the one level that you missed was mission 5, which was the introduction of the yokai.
Don't worry, I saw them in creative mode.
Oh, okay. So I will say they don't necessarily really add much to it. The yokai tend to like whatever your villagers already like. You have to get a lot more money and a lot more villagers in order to introduce yokai, and then you have to upgrade their particular building to get enough yokai to succeed in that mission. Even that is not as challenging. So
I mean, I think this is the thing. There is no rule that says a game has to be hard or a game has to be challenging. I think it's definitely more challenging than some mobile games, like city simulation mobile games that I've, tried and just uninstalled. Like, it's certainly of a caliber that it is a computer game and it's cute and it has a good amount of elements. It's decent enough to play. My disappointment with the lack of challenge really doesn't mean that it's necessarily something not to play. It's just don't go in with the expectation that it's a challenge. I think that's what kind of threw me, because I expected, when I see like the word simulation, like I just expected it to be just a bit more complex than it was.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I agree with you a ton. Like, I feel like I enjoyed this game a little more than you did. And I think it's just because, like, I don't know, I kind of appreciate the simplicity of it. And again, that $5 price point, like this feels right to me. Like, I think there's just enough content in this game to justify like the $5 price. Yeah, I think if you are used to Sims, I just think this is probably just not going to be enough for you, because there's not enough else grabbing you. Like, this might be an unfair comparison, but one day we'll be talking about Spiritfarer, and Spiritfarer has a lot of like light sim and resource management aspects to that game, and they're not particularly difficult, but that game has a lot more going on. So it's okay that those mechanics are so simple, because the story and the aesthetic is there. Whereas this game, there's just not much else there. It's fun and it's cute. It's very cozy. If you're looking for something just like very simple that you can just kind of pop into, play for a little bit, this is probably the game for you. But yeah, to your point, if you are looking for any sort of like substantial challenge, this is probably not going to be it for you.
I think what makes creative mode work for me is that not only is there no challenge, but like then I can just be literally creative. Like I just want to design the buildings and design the street and like make it look nice and like have people walk around without that expectation of even trying to do a mission and just having fun with it. I think that is where the game could potentially shine even more. Like if they had just a handful more buildings and a handful more customizations, like maybe not just the roof and the color, but some decorations, or like if there was just a bit more creative elements to it, I actually do think I would like this game a lot if I could feel like I'm really designing a town. I think there's just not enough elements for me. Like after 10 minutes of creative mode, I've already used every building and designed every permutation of everything. So again, it's like this game for me has a lot of potential and a lot of elements I enjoy. I just wish it took it like one step further.
That's more than fair. And kind of going back to like the whole newspaper thing, I like that mechanic and I think it's very fun. It's just like it did not add necessarily enough of a challenge. I think it would be nice if they can kind of create a additional mission or an additional mode where those changes were a little more substantial so that it does give you like a consistent kind of unexpected challenge. Because it does offer some of that, but it is like, it's pretty minor. And again, especially there are sometimes where there's really no effect of the newspaper like at all. And sometimes it's beneficial. So, and I feel like really the way that this game creates challenge, which we may have mentioned earlier, but just to reiterate, is that you start with very limited funds and you are only allowed to buy one building a day, pretty much. You have to be very decisive about that. And then you have to make sure the changes that you make to each building make sense. Do I spend my money on an upgrade this time, or do I spend my money on a new building? Which again adds like a small level of challenge. But to your point, then you have to sit through multiple days.
The one building a day thing, I just don't even understand why that's there, because I can barely, it feels like in the beginning of any game, I can't afford more than one building anyway.
It's that restriction for no reason. Because yeah, you're already restricted by money. And then you're like, oh, also when I do have the money, I still can't do anything different. And I have to sit through another day. So I do understand that completely, because it's not quite the challenge that maybe the average person is looking for. It's just a restriction for restriction's sake. I had fun with it. This is more divisive than some of the other games we've played, just because it is probably the simplest that we've come across. And and not even necessarily in a derogatory way. I'm just like, it's simple mechanics. They throw you into it right away. Very cozy, adorable, little tanuki. All over the place. We do love that. Yeah, it worked for me, but I completely understand why it wouldn't work for you or honestly quite a lot of people.
It's interesting because I do think Luna's Fishing Garden was simpler than this.
Ooh, yeah.
But I do think because it was I think maybe fetch quests were keeping my attention, because at least I was like, oh, I got to go run to this person. Oh, I got to go find this. I got to go get this. And I think there's a little bit of like, man, like this game for me, I feel like it's right on the edge of having something that I would really love. I don't even think it doesn't have enough mechanics between the money and the satisfaction and the beauty and the building and all this. It's just like something about how the mechanics were put together just doesn't ramp in the way that I would love. But that doesn't mean I don't recommend this game. This game actually has over 3,000 reviews and overwhelmingly positive review on Steam over all time. And so, I mean, I know it's a fairly new game, but, maybe given that it's really, really gotten positive feedback, it seems to have gotten a decent amount of attention from folks. Like, hey, maybe they'll add more to it, and that maybe I'm just waiting for the version 2.0.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. I kind of forgot that Luna's Fishing Garden was so kind of simple, but to your point, it has like a very obvious trajectory. And I think the game just overall moves a little quicker than maybe this one does. And I know we mentioned in Luna's Fishing Garden that like the very brief amount of like idling in the game, there is certainly a lot more of it in Minami Lane, where like you do have to because again, there's only one building per day. You just have to go through the days to get more money. And that can be sometimes not a fun process. So I think that's more than fair. Honestly, I completely understand where you're coming from. It was nice for me. I thought it was fun, especially for the amount of commitment, which was just a little over, I think, 5 hours for me. But yeah, I could definitely see why it's not for everyone.
Perfect. Yeah. Cute, cozy, quick game. And clearly it's for a lot of people, though. So, you can take my opinion with a grain of salt, certainly.
I think this is fun because I feel like this is the first game where we've had slightly different opinion. So.
Yes. No, it's good. I can't love every game, Sometimes games are just okay. It's fine. For $5, definitely it's fine.
Absolutely.
And I know, Brie, you said this was put together in 6 months. Honestly, pretty impressive for a game that came out that quickly with a small little group. Pretty impressive in that caliber.
Absolutely.
Brie, what are we playing next?
Oh, so next time we are playing a game I've been eyeing for a while, and it is Frog Detective. It was on sale. It was on the summer sale, and I've been eyeing it for a while, and it just seems very silly and very cute, and I love a good silly and cute game. Definitely on the shorter side, but I'm excited to talk about it.
Sweet.
We're going to solve some crimes.
Yeah, let's solve some crimes. Let's switch it up. Well, thanks, Brie, and thanks, everyone, for listening. See y'all soon.
Bye.